I'm about as subtle as a death growl in an echo chamber. Hit it!
Welcome backstage. I'm Damian Deadlove. Tonight's artist is somebody special to my musical journey. In my honest opinion, he is often overlooked as a guitarist, singer, songwriter, and record producer. Well, that changes tonight. We're talking about the one and only Lindsey Buckingham. You probably know him better as the lead guitarist and co-lead vocalist of Fleetwood Mac. But he also has a solo career and is still currently active at age 75. He is often overshadowed by the success of his former girlfriend and bandmate, Stevie Nicks. But I'm putting the cart before the horse, folks. We will cover the Fleetwood Mac era, but the focus will remain on Mr. Buckingham. So let's get this party started, shall we? Lindsey was born in Palo Alto, California on October 3rd, 1949. His introduction to guitar was a Mickey Mouse toy guitar that he learned to play on, strumming along to his older brother's record collection of 45s. His parents saw he had talent and bought him a proper instrument, a $35 harmony guitar. He never took a lesson or learned to read sheet music. He done it all by ear. At the age of 13, he got heavily influenced by the Kingston Trio and folk music. It was then he started incorporating banjo picking styles, tending to strum with his middle and ring finger instead of using a guitar pick. In 1966, at age 17, while still attending high school, Buckingham joined a band called Fritz Rabin Memorial Band, playing bass and singing for the group. After going through member changes, the band regrouped in 1967 and shortened the name to Fritz. It was at this time that he asked his friend, Stevie Nicks, to join the band as a backing vocalist. Their romantic relationship would start 5 years later after they both left Fritz. In 1972, the duo, now officially dating, recorded 7 songs to demo on a half-inch 4-track Ampex recorder. Then they headed to Los Angeles in search of a record deal. By 1973, the pair had signed with Polydor Records. In September of that same year, they released their self-titled debut album, Buckingham Nicks. They were later dropped by the label over poor record sales. It was during this time he toured with Don Everly's backing band, singing Glenn Everly's parts, mainly because the couple was broke and it was a paying gig. Then in 1974, fate would intervene. Mick Fleetwood, drummer and co-founder of the band Fleetwood Mac, had heard the song Frozen Love, which was off the Buckingham Nicks album, being played at a California studio called Sound City he was scouting for his band. Fleetwood was impressed and asked who the guitarist was on the record. By chance, it happened that Lindsey and Stevie were in one of the other studios laying down some more demos. Fleetwood and Buckingham were introduced that day. In December of the same year, Bob Welch, lead guitarist of Fleetwood Mac, leaves the band. First person Mick thinks of is Lindsey. After making contact, he offers him the job. Lindsey replies, he and Stevie are a package deal. I want to interject for a second. This is a ballsy move to make a counteroffer with a man who is offering you a paying gig in a band that has some credibility, especially the lead guitarist spot. That goes back to the late great Peter Green. It's a spot that allows you to sing and play guitar, but most of all, you get to be a songwriter. Fleetwood Mac at its core has always been the rhythm section of Mick Fleetwood and John McVie. That's why there's been so many lineup changes. Fleetwood and McVie were cool with hiring both Buckingham and Nicks, but the decision ultimately comes down to one person if this deal goes through. That person is the band's keyboardist and singer, Christine McVie, who is also a songwriter herself and John's better half. It's been implied in many stories that she's a no-nonsense kind of person. Luckily for everybody involved, Christine ended up being cool with it. By the way, neither Buckingham nor Nicks ever had to audition. They just met and talked music. I think it even took place in a restaurant. In July of '75, Fleetwood Mac releases its 10th album. the first with Lindsey and Stevie. The self-titled record shot up to number 1 on the charts. For Lindsey's part, he wrote 2 songs on the record, which were Monday Morning and I'm So Afraid. He also sang lead on Blue Letter, which was the only song no one from the band wrote. Also, he sang on a song penned by Nicks called Crystal. But nothing could prepare the band for the masterpiece that would vault them into superstardom. One of the best-selling albums of all time dropped in 1977. We're talking about Rumors. The album was a game changer, selling over 40 million copies worldwide. It was during making this record that Lindsey and Stevie broke up. They had been on again, off again during the tour and for that first record. Also, Christine and John had gotten divorced after the tour from that first record. It's amazing anything was accomplished, but the songwriters of the group brought their best. Also, I should point out, Mick Fleetwood, the odd man out who doesn't have a romantic interest in the band, has his own problems. His wife cheated on him with a friend of his, so he has distractions as well. Here's the thing, folks. You know I'm going to discuss this one. Without this album, there are no solo careers. No freedom to make an album like Tusk, which is the album after Rumors. This is the whole ball of wax, literally. Here's the thing. Timing of personal lives falling apart couldn't have come at a worse time. Especially when you have to work with your ex in a band setting and are under contract to make an album. First off, I should start with getting the official lineup on record here. Fleetwood Mac is Stevie Nicks, vocals, Lindsey Buckingham, vocals and guitar, Christine McVie, vocals and keyboards, John McVie, bass, and Mick Fleetwood, drums. The album was made under copious amounts of drugs and alcohol, mainly a lot of fucking cocaine. Arguments and chaos somehow orchestrated into brilliance. The songs were raw and real and mostly pointed at one another. For Mr. Buckingham's part, he got the ball rolling with the first single off the record titled Go Your Own Way. Guess what that song is about? It broke the top 10 on the charts. That was followed by Dreams, a Stevie Nicks song, which is the only number 1 song in the history of the band. The third song released was Don't Stop, which was a Christine McVie song where Lindsey sings the first verse and Christine sings the second. The last single off the record was You Make Loving Fun, another Christine song. By the way, who writes the song in this band is who sings lead, except where indicated otherwise. By the way, fun fact, Christine McVie is the only member in the band that was classically trained. Her and Lindsey literally jammed on guitar and piano and kind of laid out the album's music structures before a note was even recorded. The band was even able to write one song where they all contributed to the right. It's a live favorite. I'm talking about The Chain, which came from an old Christine McVie song called Keep Me There. Lindsey rewrote the intro and took pieces from a song he wrote. Stevie donated a bulk of the words. Lindsey would sing lead, though, although they all sing on it. Lindsey wrote Secondhand News, Never Gone Back Again, and Go Your Own Way. Stevie added Dreams, Gold Dust Woman, and I Don't Want to Know. Christine wrote Don't Stop, Songbird, You Make Loving Fun, and Oh Daddy. On later issue of the album, Silver Springs was added, which is a Stevie Nicks song, by the way. Now that the facts have been stated, this album was written out of pain and hurt. Keep in mind, Mr. Buckingham essentially co-produced this record with Richard Dashut. Lindsey had to produce Stevie's songs, mix them, communicate, and work together, folks. I'm going to paraphrase a quote from Lindsey. Quote, "It's really difficult to produce and mix songs when you're pissed and hurt by the person who wrote them." End quote. The lyrics are full of barbs, folks, reminders of everything that's falling apart around him in his personal life. He was a professional, folks. He treated her songs with the same care he did his own. The tension in that studio had to be thick and heavy. It's been claimed that Lindsey and Stevie would sometimes argue between takes. Christine wouldn't talk to John unless it pertained to the music being worked on. Then you still got the world tour afterwards. Even staying apart as much as possible, they still had to share the stage together. If that wasn't enough pressure on the situation, at all, folks, during the tour, Stevie and Mick would have an affair. Being Mick was still technically married at the time, and they would hide it from Lindsey. But after Lindsey was told by Mick, who supposedly couldn't lie about it any longer, Buckingham claimed he was so numb at that point it took a while to register. Another footnote. Lindsey would leave the band once, and way later down the road he would be fired. I bring that up for one reason. I said at the beginning he was an underrated guitarist. Both times the band had to hire 2 guitar players to replace him. That says a lot about how good he is, in my opinion. Well, that's our show for tonight. Remember, music is the soundtrack of our lives. Peace, love, and linen. I'm Damian Deadlove.